Hard Rock Lunchbox.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Hard Rock Lunchbox. And if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome on Stranger Hit TV. Welcome to the top 20. It's January 22nd, 2026. There is a whole lot going on in the world and a whole lot going on in my small little world, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to get to. But first, we can start by how goddamn cold it's been lately. Am I right? Yeah. It's funny, like, when you deal with climate deniers and people that just don't understand the way basic climate science works, and they're always like, well, you know, what about global warming? Shouldn't it be warmer? Like, I have to tell you, man, even though scientists tend to use, like, the right language, like, and the right words to explain, like, a scientific event, it's amazing how little it translates down to, like, the common sense and common vernacular. And as I've said on this show before, the irony of something called global warming is that it is actually a global phenomenon that is causing more warming across the globe. But what it really is, and that's true, but what it really is that extra warmth in the atmosphere and across the globe. The extra warmth creates extra energy. As anybody that's ever boiled water knows, the more heat you put into it, the more active that boiling water becomes, or it will start to boil, or you'll see motion in it. And what that energy does in the atmosphere is it creates bigger systems, you know, like it just does. Like, if anybody's familiar with Jupiter and the Great Red Spot and stuff like that, that's effectively just a never-ending storm on Jupiter that's caused by so much energy in the atmosphere that it just constantly just feeds itself. But it's also huge, and if I'm not mistaken, you can see it from here with a simple telescope. So here, not here where I am, here on Earth. So what it does is it creates these much larger systems, and because these much larger systems exist, you have spans of the entire length of a weather system that is bigger than it ever was. And I've said on this show, like, when I was growing up, we were very interested in, like, what the weather was kind of like in Virginia and the Ohio River Valley and stuff like that. Like, that was pretty much it. And if we ever had, like, a really weird thing, like an Arctic snap or a hurricane, like, it was a big deal because it was bringing in weather from further away. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, we actually have weather from way further away, kind of on the regular. If you're ever watching your weather reporter in the summer or the warmer months, he's talking about weather we have in Jacksonville. Well, that's further away than Virginia used to be. And he's talking about weather that we have way up in Canada, which is well north of where we used to get our weather from, which was really kind of limited to, like, the Ohio Valley and then, like, kind of just southern Canada. But now we're getting these Arctic snaps, and if you look at the weather patterns and the weather fronts, like, they go from, like, northern Canada because they're huge, so they can shift from northern Canada to, you know, Maryland or whatever in the winter months, and then that kind of lowers. So we're getting, like, upper state New York to, you know, Tallahassee. Like, that's a much bigger weather pattern, and because of that is why we're getting this Arctic blast of Arctic air that we're going to have for the foreseeable future. Now, I am very happy that today is a little bit warmer. Like, we're going to be in the 40s today, but apparently no mas for the foreseeable future. Like, and with the pending snowstorm, I forget, one of those, snowstorm that's going to come this weekend, like, I was super surprised because I had a business trip scheduled, and I was supposed to be in North Carolina next week for corporate meetings and stuff like that. And I knew it was going to snow here because I tend to follow our local weather, not necessarily for anything in particular, but because I like to be outside, and I've been just, like, desperate to get outside. So I'm watching, and I'm seeing all the 20s. So I knew we were getting snow. What I did not know is that almost the entire rest of the eastern half of the country is also getting snow, to the point where, like, places in Texas are starting to shut down and, the food shelves are bare and stuff like that. Well, North Carolina is going to be hit with a whole lot of snow over the weekend, and traditionally southern states don't handle that so well, so a lot of things are being shut down and closed down. So I figured I would be fine to leave on Monday because the snow would stop. Yeah, it would be a little backed up, but it's New York. We handle that stuff. But apparently everything's being shut down and everything's being moved because we have such a big storm that's going to blanket almost all of the eastern half of the United States. And that, my friends, is an effect of global warming. So you're welcome. My youngest has switched over her major currently to marine and atmospheric sciences, so I'm hoping that I'll get more detailed weather forecasts in the future if she continues on that tack. But for now, I'll still deal with Weather Underground because it seems to be the more accurate thing I can get for my weather. But I didn't come here to talk about the weather, or did I? Maybe I did. There were some other things going on in the world. I don't necessarily want to get into the Greenland thing and just... I will say I did see, and to my friends on the right, I do have something to say to you just in a few minutes. And it's not disrespectful. It's actually more of a challenge or an assist or a request. But I will say that there are growing calls now, not even just from Democrats, about invoking maybe the 25th Amendment, which would remove the president for basically, improper ability to do the job and cognitive decline. Basically everything Republicans were calling people to do during the Biden administration. Even though, as far as I can tell, the worst thing Biden did was basically fall asleep during the debate, but also he was publicly seen eating an ice cream cone, which I just, I mean, it is funny to watch people and, be like, can you imagine if such and such happened during the Obama or the Biden administration? I mean, Republicans would be losing their goddamn mind. I mean, and I think that is undeniably true, considering how much Republicans were pushing on the Biden administration and considering how very little illegal stuff he did. Yeah, he mishandled the border. Absolutely. I think that is a very definite thing we can all agree upon. And I think the border is a lot safer now, not because we've actually tightened up the border, but because the threats to people crossing the border are much higher, so it acts as a deterrent. I'm not actually opposed to that. I mean, I am opposed to the way things are being handled, but I am fine with deterrence being a reason to not come here. Not come here illegally. I really am fine with that. But that's really for another show. But this thing on Greenland, the reason it's important, and I think it's, fanciful and fantastical that, our president would insist that we just have Greenland. I mean, talk about people that learned absolutely nothing from Manifest Destiny and that part of our history that's obviously being whitewashed as we go. But it is just quite fascinating to see the geopolitical ramifications of this sort of stuff. Now, and this is what I would ask my friends on the right to kind of maybe step into a little discomfort. I was talking to my producer last night about the sheer volume, of people that watch Fox News. And I'm not saying that, CNBC or CNN or MS Now or whatever the hell they're calling it is so much better for news. But, it's going to be equivalent, in bias to a degree. It's not equal, but it's going to be equivalent in bias to stuff like Fox News and Newsmax. And I think what I would encourage people on the right to do is step out of your comfort zone just a little bit and watch maybe a few things on MS Now. Check out either Rachel Maddow's show on Mondays. You can check out Stephanie Rule. I think the probably the smartest thing to do would be to watch a Lawrence O'Donnell episode, because he really kind of insightfully captures a lot of what's going on. And as I've said, if you are a YouTuber, maybe check out Heather Cox Richardson. She's a professional and professor of history, So she's a professional historian, specifically American history, and she draws a lot of parallels to what's going on now, to what has happened before, and kind of the ramifications of those things. But I would encourage my friends on the right to maybe step into the left a little bit, just to kind of see what's being said there, because what's happening is that a lot of people on the right that watch Fox News will only watch Fox News, so they're only going to hear what Fox News is telling you. And as I've said for years now, like, my biggest news source tends to be something like Ground News, which is just an aggregate. So it pulls from all these different news sources and it kind of rates them, left, right, center, it gives you a flair for bias, and it gives you stuff in your blind spot. So if you're somebody that follows only right-wing news, like, check your blind spot and see what you might have missed. I find it very important to be well-informed, and I feel like that's an important tool. So Grand News is not a sponsor, but I highly recommend it anyway. So here's what I was going to say. So the ramifications of this Greenland thing are actually just way bigger and deeper than just the U.S. taking Greenland. Like, first of all, let's talk about the fact that Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark, right? Denmark, and I know a lot of people may not know this, but Denmark is an actual own country in Europe, right? And even though the president has started to kind of confuse Denmark and Norway and the Nobel, prize organization, like, I just want to make sure, I don't want to take it for granted that people know European geography. So I want to be very clear, like, Denmark is its own country in Europe. The Danish Empire has been around for a very long time. It's technically part of Scandinavia, so it's very close to, like, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, and, Iceland, and, of course, Greenland, right? So it's its own country. Norway is its own country, so I'm just putting that out there as, like, a basis point, because I think it's important. But so Greenland is a part of Denmark, right? It just is. And us insisting on taking Greenland, and I know Trump has taken using force off the table, thank God, but it was on the table a week ago, or probably even less than a week ago. So the fact that we would invade another country to take their land is really no different than Russia invading Ukraine. It's also no different than the imperial era of, colonialism and, our manifest destiny, when we basically just took land from the Native Americans and, basically took land from Mexico and then fought a war over it to keep that land, right? That's what that is. I mean, it's really no different than if Mexico decided to attack us for Southern California, New Mexico, and Arizona, and some of Texas, right? It's no different, right? It's the same thing. Like, we're invading a sovereign nation to take their land. Like, let's be quite clear that that's what it is. But the bigger problem, and this is why geopolitically it's such a big deal. So Denmark is an ally of ours. They're a NATO ally of ours, right? And because of that, they have actually come to our aid when we, attacked Afghanistan after 9/11, because in the NATO charter, the thing that actually gets NATO moving, I think it's called Article 5 of NATO, which is basically, if one of us is attacked, all of us are attacked. And the only time in the history of NATO that's been invoked is when we were attacked on 9/11. And all of those countries, either sent troops, or they were in logistical support, or intelligence support, or whatever they could muster. Like, so Denmark is a NATO ally, and I know the Republicans tend to sour on NATO because the Americans, and I completely agree with this, the United States of America definitely pays more than our fair share and puts more than our fair share into NATO. That's true. And in a complete, like, singularity sort of way to look at it, that is true. What people seem to miss out on is what we actually get for that. Like, our sphere of influence because of that is tremendous. And that is one of the reasons that we are such a major world power. Another one of the reasons we're such a major world power is because within the grounds of NATO, we have basically offered up a nuclear protective shield over the years. And because of that, we've been able to denuclearize a lot of countries around the world. It's why, like, almost every country at this point is probably capable of developing some sort of nuclear program or whatever, right? Like, the scientists exist, and, like, I don't know what you can find on YouTube these days, but I don't think it's terribly long before AI is able to tell you how to make a nuclear weapon. It's one of the things we're really concerned about in Iran, and rightfully so. But because of this, all of our European countries, most of our European allies, I mean, England and France, I think, are nuclear powers. I don't know which other ones in NATO are that, but they have said, well, we will denuclearize because we have these assurances from the United States of America that they will come to our defense. Here's the problem. If we invaded Greenland or keep pushing pressure on Denmark to take Greenland, like, that is a NATO ally. Like, it has never happened in the history of NATO that one NATO ally has attacked another NATO ally. Like, at that point, if we invaded Greenland by force, like, Denmark would invoke that Chapter 5 of the Charter, and the rest of NATO would actually have to attack or defend or whatever against America. And, like, while we still have the most superior army or military force in the world, like, do you guys really want to go to war with Europe? I mean, seriously, you want to talk about, like, the layout for World War III? Like, that's a big deal. Like, it's our traditional ally that has kept the communist Russia in check, and that is a huge deal. And the point that I'm getting to is, over this past week, the Chancellor of Germany has said denuclearization was a mistake, which means that countries like Germany, probably Denmark, possibly Scandinavia, not that Scandinavia is a region, so those three countries up there, are probably going to start up their nuclear programs so that they can become nuclear powers, because nuclear weapons, while nobody wants to use them, really do provide the biggest deterrent so far in the modern war era. It's a big deal. It's super important. And the concern there is that if we are actually forcing our own allies to ramp up their nuclear facilities and create nuclear weapons, like, that is now a whole lot of other places in the world that are going to be susceptible to bad actors. All it really takes is one madman to win an election in one of those countries that has nuclear weapons. Like, you can imagine, right? Like, we really do not want Iran to have nuclear weapons, because they do have madmen in power, and they're still incredibly butthurt that we just bombed them and that Israel constantly bombs them. And Iran has said publicly and often that they think Israel should be wiped off the map. Well, one thing that can do that is a nuclear weapon, which is why it's so important for us to keep Iran from having that. Well, if all these other countries are now going to have nuclear weapons, we're just one weird election away from having a complete madman in charge of their nuclear arsenal. And if you think it's not possible for one election to have a madman take office, I guess you just haven't been paying attention. So my point is, again, to my friends on the right, I would check out some news on the left just to make sure you're hearing. Whether or not you agree with it is not important to me. But if you're intellectual enough to be curious about what you're hearing and to follow up on it, and to maybe think about some concerns that maybe you're not hearing about in your echo chamber, I strongly encourage you to do that. And for the rest of you that are kind of monitoring things, and this is true if you're on the left, like, you know, I've talked for years about, like, it's important to watch Fox News because, I kind of want to know what they're saying over there and what they're believing, because it helps me talk to people that only watch Fox News. But also, Fox News is completely capable of bringing up a subject that the left doesn't want to talk about. And I find that incredibly useful and fascinating and interesting and all that stuff, because it helps me be more informed about my world and my worldview. And that's why I think it's important for all sides to be kind of at least monitoring all sides. And for those of you in the middle that are already doing that, like, Yeah, man, this is a big deal. Like, you should pay attention and you should actually take some action. And if you're not sure what action to take, start by calling your local, your actual congressman. You can call your senators. Start with your representative in the House. Like, I know that my representative just sent out the most ridiculous email about how much cheaper groceries are. And I don't know where he's shopping, but like, they aren't cheaper. They're demonstrably not cheaper. And we can prove it. Is gas down? Yeah, the price of gas is down. The refineries in the U.S. have been working overtime and been doing an incredibly good job. We did not have any major hurricanes for disruption, which is just fantastic. Like, we're doing great. So is gas down at $2 a gallon? No, it's in the mid-2s, the upper mid-2s and stuff like that. But it's definitely cheaper than the mid-3s and low 3s that it was, you know, when Trump took office. So absolutely gas prices are down. But gas prices are down, which means you can, you know, it's cheaper for you to go to the store and then pay more for your groceries. So, like, it's just, the amount of misinformation out there is not, it's not restricted to just one side. Like, it's capable of being on all the sides. So my point, and I guess the whole purpose of this little rant, is to make sure that you're being informed by all sides, and then with that information you can make your decisions. And as I always say, make sure it passes your own sniff test. Make sure this jives with what you're seeing and what makes sense to you. Are grocery prices lower in your neighborhood? Great. They aren't in mine at all. So that sounds like a lie to me. And I feel like that is very easy to determine for yourself, and then you can figure out who you can trust from there. But I've talked enough about it. I wanted to talk about recording, but I didn't get to it because I suck. So let's just get on to some local music because I feel like I'm falling asleep anyway. It's always good to hear some Jackknife Stiletto. I don't know that band is ever going to do anything else, but at least we've got classics like this.